Hello Army! Welcome back to Taekook Update Channel, Madrid, June 26, 2026. The afternoon sun scorched the roof of Estadio Civitas Metropolitano with golden light that reflected harshly off every corner of the massive stage. The Spanish wind blew gently, but not enough to cool the air that felt thick among the hundreds of crew members, technicians, and dancers moving busily to prepare for one of the biggest concerts of the year. In the middle of all that noise, something felt different. Something invisible, yet palpable to anyone observant enough to notice. Kim Taehyung stood at the edge of the stage, his eyes sweeping across the entire arena with a gaze that was usually warm, yet this time felt slightly different. Something kept him from being fully present, even as his body stood upright beneath the soundcheck lights that had not yet been fully switched on. He glanced in a particular direction, toward the corner of the stage where someone was supposed to be, someone he could usually find effortlessly among any crowd. Jeon Jungkook was there, but different from usual. Jungkook, who could always make an entire room feel more alive with just his smile, stood today with his head slightly bowed, earphones fitted in his ears, his gaze completely locked onto the stage monitor before him. His fingers moved occasionally, adjusting something, counting beats, recalling blocking, submerged in his own world full of technical details that only he could fully comprehend. Taehyung watched him from a few steps away, silent. A small question rose in his mind without a sound. Is something wrong? Not because Jungkook had done anything bad. Not because a conflict had erupted between them. Only because Jungkook's silence today felt different from the silence he usually knew. And Taehyung, who had known Jungkook for more than a decade, understood well that there are many kinds of silence in this world, and not all of them mean the same thing. The Civitas Metropolitano soundcheck had only just begun. Yet amid the thumping bass and ringing microphones being calibrated, another conversation was taking place. A conversation without words. A conversation that only happens between two people who have been through so much together that even silence becomes its own language. And that afternoon, that language was saying something that made Taehyung's chest feel a little heavier than usual. Crew members moved quickly all around them. Stage director instructions crackled through walkie-talkies. Someone shouted for camera position confirmation. Yet amid all that commotion, Taehyung stepped slowly toward Jungkook. Not in a hurry, not with any grand intention. Just a simple step from a friend who wanted to make sure his best friend was okay. He said that name, softly, nearly swallowed by the soundcheck noise. Jungkook. But Jungkook did not turn. His earphones may have muffled the surrounding sounds too perfectly, or his mind was too deeply submerged in concentration to hear anything else. Whatever the reason, Jungkook remained still, his eyes still fixed on the monitor, his body still frozen in the same position. Taehyung stopped, one step short of a distance that should have been close enough to catch someone's attention. He stood there for a moment, with an expression difficult to read from afar, yet clear enough to anyone who knew him well. Something at the corner of his lips did not lift the way it usually did. Something in his eyes looked like someone who had prepared a sentence, but then decided to tuck it away again. Disappointment, not the great kind that could shatter everything. Just a small disappointment, fragile and fleeting, like a soap bubble that appears and bursts within seconds. Taehyung drew a breath, turned around, and returned to his own position. His smile remained, as always, but there was one layer behind that smile that could only be seen by those who truly knew how to look. Several minutes passed. Jungkook continued moving from one point to another across the stage, checking every detail with the precision that had always been his trademark. He spoke with the sound technician, adjusted the position of the floor monitor, repeated several choreography movements to ensure his blocking was perfect. He was the flawless Jeon Jungkook on stage, as always. Yet no one knew that amid all his perfection, there was one small thing that had slipped past his attention without him realizing it. From another corner of the stage, a few fortunate people were able to witness this moment from a distance. Perhaps crew members standing at the side of the stage. Perhaps a handful of fans who had gained access to the soundcheck and stood in the very front row, holding their phones with trembling fingers so as not to miss a single second. They saw Taehyung walk, stop, then step back. They saw Jungkook unmoved from his concentration. And in their minds, 1,000 interpretations arose all at once. In the era of social media like today, a fraction of a second can become a long narrative. A single facial expression can be cut from its context and become a headline. A single moment of silence between two people can be read as 1,000 different things by 1,000 different people. And that is exactly what began to happen, even before the soundcheck ended. Phones were raised. Fingers started typing. Words began to spread. Is that tension between them? Taehyung looked sad. Jungkook ignored him. Those sentences flew through the digital world far faster than the speed of light, spreading from one screen to another, from one timeline to the next, carrying with them worry, speculation, and in some cases, unnecessary panic. That is how the modern world works. A moment that lasted no more than 3 minutes could become a crisis that felt as though it would shake everything apart. But the stage kept turning. The sound check kept going. Lights continued to be directed. Sound continued to be adjusted. And the performers kept doing what they do best, preparing. Because behind all the drama being woven by the outside world, inside that stage itself, there was a reality far simpler and far more human than everything being debated on the internet. And then, like the dawn that always comes even after the darkest night, something changed. The sound check entered its final phase. Last instructions were given. Crew members began moving to their standby positions. And in the midst of that transition, Jungkook finally removed his earphones, lifted his head, and his eyes moved naturally, searching for the person he always searched for without having to think twice. His eyes met Taehyung's, and something simple happened. Jungkook smiled. Not a performance smile. Not a smile prepared for the camera. A smile that appeared on its own, reflexive, like breathing, like something his body did automatically every time it found the person he knew best in this world. A smile that only appeared for one particular person, in a way that could only be understood by those who have ever had someone like that in their own lives. Taehyung saw that smile, and something in his face melted, slowly, like ice touched by warmth. His own smile appeared, slower than usual, but when it came, it carried all the warmth that had been quietly held inside. The two of them walked toward each other, across the stage that was gradually emptying itself of a soundcheck's bustle, beneath the Madrid light that was slowly tilting toward the west. They talked. No one knew exactly what was said. Perhaps just a few sentences. Perhaps only a confirmation about stage positions, blocking, concert technicalities. Or perhaps there was something more personal woven in between, something only the two of them could hear. Whatever it was, that brief conversation did what a conversation between two people who truly know each other is supposed to do. It bridged the empty space that had briefly appeared between them. Jungkook patted Taehyung's shoulder, lightly, in a way that had long been familiar between them. Taehyung nodded, his eyes blinking in a way that meant far more than a mere physical gesture. The two of them turned toward the stage, toward the work that was still waiting, and with steps in sync, they continued preparing together. As always, as they always had. No grand dramaturgy. No reconciliation that needed to be announced to the world. Just two people returning to a rhythm they had built across years, a rhythm that may occasionally be interrupted by small things, but never truly stops. A rhythm too strong and too deep to be broken by a small unintentional moment of misunderstanding. Outside the stadium, the digital world was still busy discussing what they had seen. But inside Estadio Civitas Metropolitano, beneath the Madrid sky that was beginning to shift into shades of orange and purple, Kim Taehyung and Jeon Jungkook had already moved forward. Because that is what they always do. Not because they never feel small discomforts. Not because they are always perfect. But because they have learned, through all the years they have walked together, that moving forward together is always more important than standing still in misunderstanding. Jungkook is the type of person who gives everything to the work he loves. When he is in preparation mode, the world around him can blur. Not because he does not care, but precisely because he cares too deeply. Every detail becomes important. Every nuance becomes something he must attend to. His concentration is the form his love takes for the art he has devoted himself to, and sometimes, in that intensity, he does not realize that the people around him may be trying to reach him. Taehyung understands this. He has understood it for years. But understanding something intellectually and feeling it emotionally are two different things. There are moments when that understanding arrives a little too late to reach the heart, when the human part of him feels something before the rational part has had time to provide context. And that afternoon was one of those moments. But here's what no camera captured, and what no headline ever wrote. that Taehyung did not hold on to that small disappointment. He felt it, yes. He let it exist for a moment, yes, but he did not build walls from it. He did not let it grow into something larger than it should have been. Because he knew, with a certainty that comes from a decade of friendship, that Jungkook had not meant it that way. And Jungkook, when he finally emerged from his zone of concentration and turned to find Taehyung, felt something he could not put into words. A kind of sudden awareness that perhaps there was something he had missed. Not because anyone told him. Not because anyone confronted him. Only because the way Taehyung smiled at him that day, warm as always but with something very small behind it, made Jungkook read things that had never been spoken aloud. That is the language that can only be mastered by two people who truly know each other. A language where a smile can become a long sentence. A language where a glance can become an entire conversation. A language where a pat on the shoulder can mean I'm here, I hear you, I'm not going anywhere. No translator needed. No lengthy explanation required. Just two people and everything they have built together across the years. That night, the concert at Estadio Civitas Metropolitano unfolded perfectly. Tens of thousands of fans filled the stadium's vast stands, their voices merging into a wave that could be felt in the chest. Stage lights swept across the crowd, and up on that stage, Taehyung and Jungkook stood side by side as they always have. Moving, singing, giving everything. There was one moment in the middle of the concert where the camera caught them both. Jungkook was performing one of his vocal parts, and Taehyung, from his position at the side of the stage, turned and looked at him. Not in a dramatic way, just a brief glance. 2 seconds perhaps, no more. But in those 2 seconds, there was something very real, very honest, and very human. Pride, warmth, a sense of belonging that never needed to be spoken because it was already felt all on its own. Among the millions of fans who witnessed that moment, many felt it. Those who had been busy crafting speculation on their timelines the night before, many fell quiet for a moment, watching this, and feeling something simple yet powerful. These are two people who care about each other. Full stop. The small misunderstanding at the Civitas Metropolitano soundcheck was not a crack in something fragile. It was proof that something is real. Because only a truly real relationship can have a moment like that. A moment where imperfection rises to the surface, yet is then resolved in the most human way possible, with time, with attention, with a little communication, and with a great deal of understanding. A friendship that has lasted a decade is not built on beauty alone. It is built on all the small imperfect moments, all the days when someone was too tired to notice, all the moments when someone felt slightly overlooked, and all the small decisions to keep choosing each other in spite of that. This is where the true strength of a bond lies, not in the grand and dramatic moments, but in the small and quiet ones, like that afternoon at Estadio Civitas Metropolitano. Jungkook may never know exactly how significant that small step of Taehyung's was, the one that never quite reached him. And Taehyung may never know exactly how Jungkook read something in his smile at the end of the soundcheck. But both of them know one and the same thing: they will be okay. They have always been okay. And they will continue to be okay. Because that is what people who truly love each other as friends do. They do not leave each other in the middle of small misunderstandings. They find their way back, not always in a dramatic or perfect way, but always in a way that is enough. Always in a way that they both understand. Always in their own way. Madrid, June 26, 2026. A day that may not be recorded as the most important day in the long history of their journey together. But for those who paid close enough attention, for those willing to look deeper than what simply appears on the surface, that day offered something truly precious. A reminder that even between two people who know each other best, there is always room for small, imperfect human moments. And it is within that imperfection, precisely, where true beauty hides.